You were planning to leave me, weren't you? She said, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed like a final boss guarding a treasure chest, except the only treasure was my dignity, and she'd already spent most of it. I'm sorry, what? Don't act innocent. My sister told me everything. You've been making plans. That was the moment. Right there. Not when I found the second wine glass in the sink. Not when I saw the shared Uber receipt from a city we'd never visited. Not even when her spa retreat coincided exactly with her sister's mystery flu that needed constant bedside attention. No, this was it. That sentence, delivered with the smug confidence of someone who thought she was finally in control, was the last door that needed closing. I didn't ask which plan she was referring to, because I had three. One for if she admitted cheating, one for if she tried to gaslight, and one for this exact moment when she let someone else put the words in her mouth. So I didn't yell, didn't beg, didn't even shrug. I picked up my keys, walked to the front door, and left. Behind me, I heard the deadbolt twist like a shotgun cocking. She waited less than 24 hours to change the locks, and even less to post a cute little photo of brunch with her sister on Instagram. 2 glasses of rosé, 2 smug smiles. Caption, nothing like sister strength had new beginnings. Sure, new beginnings. She told our mutual friends that I was going through something, that I'd had a late life identity crisis, that I'd confessed to wanting to run away but then chickened out, that I'd emotionally checked out for months, and that she deserved better. Most nodded politely. A few reached out. I didn't reply to any of them. No dramatic Facebook post. No long cryptic messages. Just silence. That's what really got her. Not the departure, but the absence of a performance. No man leaves like that unless he knows something. She wanted me to come crawling back, to sleep in my car for a few nights, to be humbled enough to beg for re-entry. Instead, I checked into a modest furnished rental on the edge of town. No frills, but quiet. And it had 2 things her place didn't anymore, peace and the absence of liars. And here's the thing, I knew exactly how it would play out. The rush of confidence, the validation from her sister, the sister who was suddenly always there, helping around the house, offering to split expenses and lighten the burden. You know what else would lighten the burden? Honesty. But I wasn't counting on that. I was counting on patterns. Because people don't betray you for the first time when you catch them. They do it long before, and they do it the same way they always have, with lies that sound like love and smiles that smell like rot. Let me just say this real quick. More than 97% of you reading or listening haven't subscribed yet. If you're here for stories like this, it really helps the team when you hit that button. Doesn't cost a thing. And make sure you don't miss what happens next. Now, back to her. She changed the locks, reclaimed the bedroom closet, even legally changed her last name back before we even filed anything. The part that made me actually laugh, was when she left my bookshelf untouched, like she wanted it as a monument. Here lies the man who abandoned me. I bet her sister whispered that phrase at night while they drank their cheap rosé and planned their future renovations. She thought I was licking my wounds. Nah, I was working. In the background, slowly, methodically, I began collecting. See, it's funny what people forget when they think you're gone. What passwords they never change. What accounts they assume you'll never check again. What names show up on shared bills. What packages get delivered to addresses still registered under both of your names. Her sister made a mistake. Multiple, actually. But the first was underestimating how quiet I could be when I'm listening. And the second was thinking I didn't know what loyalty costs. Turns out, I'd been the only one paying. She posted a picture from a vineyard the second Sunday after I left. Wide-brimmed hat, glass in hand, her sister grinning beside her with that filtered, blown-out smile people wear when they're pretending too hard. The caption read, "Starting fresh, stronger than ever." Right, strong enough to believe your own lie, but not strong enough to face the silence that follows. What she didn't post was the slight tremble in her fingers when she tried to reset one of our joint online logins and found it already changed. She assumed it was a glitch, told herself I'd probably gone off grid. She didn't call, not once, not because she didn't want to, but because calling meant opening a door she'd nailed shut with pride. She thought she'd won, and for a time it really did look like she had. Her sister moved in full time, though they called it temporary. First with a suitcase, then a second car parked in my driveway, then her dog, who barked at shadows and chewed baseboards like it held a grudge. The two of them turned the house into a sorority clubhouse for bitter 30-somethings who just needed to heal. They painted over my office wall, tossed out my tools, rearranged the living room, and sold the vintage record player I'd restored by hand. I didn't stop them. I was busy printing statements. It started with the joint account. Nothing unusual until I saw a PayPal link tied to a name I didn't recognize. A florist in a state we didn't live in, then a hotel charge that didn't match her business trips. 2 canceled flights, 1 unfamiliar Venmo tag with a heart emoji and a note. For the drinks, not hers. Her sister's. See, that was her first blind spot. She assumed her sister was only helping her. But a parasite doesn't help the host. It feeds. And I had just the tools to watch it feed. The apartment I'd rented was quiet, on the second floor of a 4-plex with neighbors who kept to themselves. No TV, just a small desk and a cheap office chair I bought off Craigslist. I sat there most evenings, cataloging, archiving, tracking purchases made on the emergency card she didn't think I remembered, matching timestamps, compiling photos. A set of gold earrings went missing in week 3, family heirloom. They'd been stored in a locked box in the attic. She never even noticed they were gone. But the pawn ticket I found online under her sister's driver's license number said otherwise. Week 4, she shared a selfie from the kitchen, captioned "Brunch at home with my ride or die." I zoomed in. The background showed a handbag that wasn't hers. I remembered it because I bought it years ago for her sister's birthday when she guilted me into a group gift. Funny how things circle back. The 7th week was when her social media activity slowed, posts came less frequently, captions got shorter, her smile started to look like a hostage situation. People noticed. "Missing you two at book club. Where's our brunch duo? You girls okay?" No responses. She'd blocked me on everything, thought that gave her peace. But digital fences don't protect against ghosts. And I'd become one, silent, drifting just beyond the perimeter, watching her fake new world crack under its own weight. That week, I pulled the full 7 years of bank records, not just hers, ours. A few entries flagged instantly, cross-referenced with her sister's old address, then with her new P.O. box, which she forgot to hide when she used it for a subscription renewal. From there, the trail widened, rent assistance checks cashed under both names, an unemployment claim I never filed, and an old checking account from her 20s that suddenly had regular deposits, none of them from work. My favorite find was small, almost forgettable, a $42 charge from a sketchy online retailer that sold imitation jewelry. Same day the brooch went missing, they'd replaced it, slipped the fake one in the box, and laughed it off when she lost track of it during a spring cleaning purge. She wouldn't notice, not until it mattered, because eventually she'd need the truth to be on her side. And when that day came, when the silence got loud enough to scare her, she'd reach out, and I'd be ready. But not for reconciliation, for revelation. It started with the sound of a door clicking shut. She was passing the hallway at night, headed to the kitchen for chamomile and melatonin gummies, pretending she was sleeping fine, when she caught her sister's voice through the cracked bathroom door. "No, I did use it yesterday. Look, I don't know why it's not working. It's his card, the one he never checks. No, not the joint one, the old one." "Yeah, okay, but if you run it again..." "Hello?" Click. Silence. By the time the door opened, her sister was already smiling like she hadn't just been whispering in panic. "Everything okay?" she asked, feigning concern with her usual performative wide eyes. Her sister laughed it off. "Oh, just dumb customer service. Trying to cancel one of those stupid sample subscriptions. You know how they keep charging you forever. Anyway, don't worry." And for that moment she didn't, but it stuck. The next morning the coffee creamer was gone. Then the gas tank in her car was half full even though she'd just filled it. Not damning, not evidence, just off. Then the savings account. She logged in to transfer a bit toward a spa weekend she'd been eyeing, a reward for being strong, and paused. The number didn't look wrong exactly, just smaller than she'd expected. She clicked through the statements, a few Venmo transfers, an auto payment to something she didn't recognize. But she convinced herself she'd forgotten something. It was her own account, after all. But it clung to her like a whisper she couldn't place. It got worse with the brooch. Her grandmother's brooch wasn't expensive in the way people meant. It wasn't gold, didn't sparkle, but it was hers, worn at her wedding. saved in a blue velvet pouch at the back of her jewelry drawer, the kind of thing you know by touch even in the dark. And one morning it was gone. She tore apart the bedroom, then the closet, then her travel bag. Nothing. She asked her sister, calm at first, light. "Have you seen the brooch, the one Grandma gave me?" Her sister paused just long enough, then snorted. "You probably misplaced it again. You were wearing it at that charity event, remember? Maybe check your car." That was the moment, the fracture. Not the missing item, not the lie, but the tone. That dismissive tone, wrapped in sugary syrup, the same tone she used when they were kids and she borrowed makeup or a $20 bill or their dad's watch. That night, she locked her bedroom door. She told herself it was just a habit, a security thing. She lived in a busy neighborhood. Her sister's dog barked randomly. It wasn't because she didn't trust her sister. It was just easier this way. But trust doesn't crumble in a single moment. It decays, slowly, like wood swelling under a leaking pipe. By the time you notice, it's already rotten. The next afternoon, she opened her wardrobe and found a silk scarf she hadn't seen in years, badly folded, stuffed at the bottom. Perfume that wasn't hers clung to it, a scent she hadn't worn since 2018. Her sister's perfume. She didn't confront her. Instead, she pulled out her old laptop, the one her husband had set up with backups and an encrypted vault he taught her how to use, but she never touched. It took 10 minutes to remember the password. She found nothing suspicious. But the fact that she was even checking, the trickle had begun. Her sister baked muffins the next day, banana walnut. "Because I thought you needed cheering up," she said with that same curated smile. She thanked her, ate one, smiled back. Then later, when her sister wasn't home, she dumped the rest in the trash, not because she thought they were poisoned, not exactly, but because she couldn't be sure they weren't. Every laugh between them now had a slight echo. Every conversation had a delay, like a satellite call. Her sister still played the role, sister, caretaker, cheerleader, but something was off. She started texting her husband again, then deleting drafts. What would she even say? That she wasn't sure anymore? That maybe the story her sister told, the one she had acted on, wasn't airtight? But if she admitted that, what did it say about her? So she said nothing. Not yet. But the locks on her door stayed, and she started checking her bag before bed, counting the jewelry, watching the mail. Doubt had moved in, and unlike her sister, it wasn't planning to leave. It was a rooftop birthday party, one of those mildly forced gatherings with Prosecco and plastic flutes, and happy birthday spelled in rose gold helium letters sagging under the June sun. She wore a black jumpsuit she hadn't taken out of the closet in months. Her sister had insisted, "You need to be seen again. Let them know you're not curled up crying in some corner." So she went, smiled, hugged people she hadn't spoken to since before the transition, let them feed her compliments that tasted like pity. Everyone pretended like they weren't dying to ask what happened to the husband she'd paraded at this very same event 2 years ago. But one person didn't pretend. It was Leslie, mid-60s, accountant, no filter. She had that dry, acerbic way of getting to the point that made her both loved and avoided at every social event. Leslie leaned in over a slice of stale carrot cake and said, "Didn't your husband used to handle your joint investments?" She paused. "Yeah." "Why?" Leslie shrugged casually, but her eyes didn't. "I noticed a few transfers through a mutual holding company. Odd timing, odd destinations. One flagged internally at my firm. Probably nothing, just looked off. That was all. Just a nudge, a suggestion." But her stomach tightened like it had caught a punch. She laughed it off, but too sharply. "We haven't spoken in weeks. Probably just housekeeping stuff." Leslie nodded. "Right, housekeeping." She didn't stay long after that. Made up an excuse about a headache. Her sister drove them home, blasting some 2010s pop playlist like a teenager. The whole way, she stared out the window, replaying every financial conversation she and her husband had ever had, every login, every password, every shared account. That night, after her sister went to bed, she went online to check her primary account with their financial advisor. Denied. She tried again. Denied. pulled up her email, searched for anything from the firm, found a bland, automated message dated 6 weeks ago. Your access has been administratively revoked per request from the primary account holder. He was the primary. She never changed that. Her hands went cold. The next morning, she made a call she never thought she'd have to make. Not to her husband, but to his assistant, who had handled their estate paperwork and tax prep for years. "Oh," the assistant said brightly, clearly caught off guard. "I thought you knew. Mr. Dobson requested full control be returned to him, said you two had separated. He handled all the forms himself, notarized and everything." She hung up, walked straight into the kitchen where her sister was half dancing to music while making eggs. "Did you know about this?" she asked, voice tight. "The investments. He revoked my access 6 weeks ago." Her sister didn't even look surprised. She flipped a spatula like she was hosting a damn cooking show. "Well, yeah, I figured he'd pull something like that eventually." "You figured?" "I thought he was the threat. Maybe you both were." That sentence landed like a dropped plate. She stared. What does that even mean? Her sister finally met her eyes. "You're not exactly innocent here. You wanted him gone, remember? You said you needed to breathe. Well, he's breathing now. You just don't like the air." She walked out before she said something she couldn't unsay, locked herself in her bedroom, and sat on the edge of the bed, shaking. Because suddenly, the story she'd been sold, that her husband was a manipulator, that he was scheming behind her back, that he was the one with secrets, was full of holes. Her sister had convinced her of that narrative. Over wine, over whispered stories, over tears, all while her hand had been in the damn cookie jar. What if Leslie was right? What if he wasn't the one siphoning money? What if he'd just been moving it? Out of her reach, but not out of reason. And more terrifying, what if he had good reason? She checked the safe in her closet. Nothing missing, but the combination was slightly off, like someone had spun it, maybe tried it. The hair on the back of her neck stood up. It wasn't just about the money now. It was about control, about the shifting tectonics of trust. The room felt suddenly small, like the walls knew something she didn't. She sat there in silence, the eggs burning in the kitchen, and realized she didn't know who was in control anymore. But it sure as hell wasn't her. It came on a Thursday, mid-morning, right after her sister left for yoga, which she now realized was probably code for anything else. The knock was sharp, not polite, not hesitant, just 2 confident raps, then silence. A courier stood there, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on, no small talk. "Signature required." She signed. He handed her a thick manila envelope, sealed and slightly weighty, no return address, no note, just her name, handwritten, in his handwriting. Her stomach knotted immediately. She walked it to the kitchen table, placed it down like it might detonate, and stared at it for a long moment. The last time she'd seen his writing was on a birthday card, months ago. Neat, square, no loops. Always deliberate. She opened it. The first page was a copy of a lease agreement, a modest apartment complex about 30 minutes away, notarized, signed, already dated. It showed he'd been living there since the first week she changed the locks. So, he hadn't stayed with friends, or left town. He'd planted himself nearby, quiet, watching. The second page, a formal removal from the house deed, his name, gone. Filed, stamped, complete. She blinked, heart hammering. 7 weeks. No calls, no pleading. And in that time, he'd legally severed himself from the house, their house, and started over, without so much as a question or explanation. Attached to that page was a single post-it note, blue. 7 words. 7 weeks. You never once asked if it was true. She read it twice, then a third time. And that's when the chill set in, not the goosebump kind, but the bone-deep freeze that settles behind your ribs and whispers, "You miscalculated everything." But that wasn't the end. There was a second packet, stapled, organized, and notarized. Title, Asset Activity Overview. At first, she didn't understand what she was looking at. It was a list of withdrawals, transfers, logins, each tied to a user ID. Then it clicked. The user ID was familiar, very familiar. It was her sister's. Line after line of movements, thousands withdrawn over the course of 5 months, from joint accounts, from private savings, even one transaction from her emergency health fund. A fund only 3 people knew existed, her husband, and her sister. She kept flipping pages, unable to stop. There were screen captures of authorization emails, phone call logs, a photograph, blurry, taken from a distance, of her sister at an ATM late at night, wearing sunglasses and a hoodie. The date on the ATM photo. 3 days after her sister moved in. She dropped the envelope. Her hand went to her phone, hovered. She started to call her sister, then stopped. Because what would she even say? Hey, did you happen to forge my credentials and rob me blind while convincing me my husband was planning to abandon me? It sounded insane, but the proof was here. Stamped, bound, legal. She tried calling the financial advisor again, left a voicemail, voice shaking, unsure what to even ask. Then she sat at the table, surrounded by papers, breathing like someone who just realized the fire had been burning for a lot longer than the smoke showed. Because this wasn't just a breakup. This wasn't even betrayal. This was a setup. He hadn't left in anger. He'd waited, letting her and her sister build the rope and tighten the noose. And now he wasn't making accusations. He was submitting documentation. And suddenly, the silence over the past 7 weeks made perfect sense. It hadn't been avoidance. It had been preparation. She picked up the Post-it again. 7 weeks. You never once asked if it was true. She hadn't. She'd believed the version her sister fed her because it was easier, because it made her feel like the victim, because it gave her someone to rage at instead of someone to forgive. Now the rage had nowhere to go but inward, and her sister hadn't returned from yoga. Not yet. She stared at the Post-it all night, as if it might change under the lamp's yellow glow, as if by squinting hard enough she could make the 7 weeks vanish, or the tone sound less final. Her coffee went cold. She didn't notice. Round 2:20 a.m., she tried to open the asset list again, but her hands were shaking too badly to align the pages. By sunrise, she gave in. She texted him, "Can we talk?" "You misunderstood." She twisted things. She stared at the screen for 5 straight minutes. The typing indicator flickered on, then stopped, then started again. 3 words came back. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. I'll bring everything." No sure, no smiley face, no warmth. Just a statement, like a summons. She swallowed and put her phone down. Then picked it up again and did what she swore she wouldn't do. She called her sister, straight to voicemail. Second time, picked up mid-ring. "Hey," the sister said, too cheerful. "Just getting out of class. What's up?" "You need to come back, now." Pause. "Okay, whoa, you sound like someone died." "I got a package," she said flatly. "From him." Long silence. What was in it? A lease, a new deed, and your user ID on asset withdrawal records, with screenshots. "He's bluffing," her sister snapped instantly. "He's just bitter. You left him. He's trying to poison the well now. Classic manipulator move." "You were using my credentials," she said, voice low. "He has logs." "No, you were careless," her sister shot back. "Don't you dare try to pin this on me. I was helping you stay afloat while you were spiraling." "You sold Grandma's brooch." Dead silence. "You lost that thing years ago," her sister finally said, defensive. "Don't you remember? You were crying in the closet. I found the pawn ticket with your ID, dated 2 days before you told me to check the car." Another long pause, then colder. "He's playing you, just like always. I asked him to meet tomorrow." "Jesus Christ, why?" "I need the truth," she said. "All of it." "You'll get theater," her sister muttered. "And a pile of papers that mean nothing out of context. He's going to try to destroy us." She caught that. "Us?" Her sister didn't respond, then muttered something about needing to go, said she'd be home late, and hung up before questions could land. She sat there in the silence. Us. Not you. Not you and him. Us. She didn't sleep that night, not even a little. She sat in the corner of her room, surrounded by the crumpled remains of her former certainty. Every drawer felt like it held a bomb. Every memory had teeth now. She reread her own journal entries from the last 2 months. Angry scribbles about how free she felt, how her sister finally understood, how he was probably off with someone else already. God, she had wanted so badly to be right that she never stopped to consider whether she was being used. At 4:00 a.m. she made tea. At 5 o'clock she tore down the framed photo of their wedding from the hallway wall. and shoved it in a drawer. By 7, her eyes were dry but glassy. Her makeup flaked off while she tried to apply it with shaking fingers. She couldn't stop looking at the clock. 8:20, 8:57, 9:13, 9:39. Every tick of the second hand was a reminder that he wasn't coming to talk. He was coming to end it. And the worst part, she wasn't sure if she wanted to stop him. He arrived at exactly 10:00 a.m. No early knock, no idle loitering. Just a crisp knock, 2 beats, and silence. She opened the door. He stood there, pressed shirt, blazer, no tie, calm in the way a surgeon is calm before cutting something out. In one hand, a leather folder. In the other, nothing at all. "Morning?" he said, like he was greeting a bank clerk. She stepped aside wordlessly. Her heart was already in her throat, beating in time with the pendulum clock behind her. She had barely slept, hadn't eaten. Her stomach twisted into knots at the sight of him so composed. She half expected him to look thinner, worn down, but he looked the opposite, like a man who'd stopped dragging dead weight. He walked in like he'd never lived there, no glance at the pictures, no pause at the corner where his reading chair used to be, just to the kitchen table, where the sun cut through the blinds in stark surgical stripes. She closed the door softly behind him. Her sister wasn't back yet. Good, better, safer. "Would you like coffee?" she asked automatically. "No." He sat, unsnapped the folder, pulled out one page, laid it on the table with surgical precision. Divorce papers. He slid them across the table. "I've signed. The assets listed reflect only what's legally traceable. Your lawyer can review the rest." She didn't move to touch them. Her mouth opened. No words. He laid down the next page, then another, and another. A detailed timeline, 7 weeks long, color-coded, labeled, matched with timestamps from bank records, login credentials, email screenshots, device fingerprints. She skimmed the first few lines, her eyes widening. The formatting was meticulous, the tone cold. There was no commentary, just data. He placed down a transaction log, multiple pages, highlighted entries. "You authorized these according to the records." She blinked, shaking her head faintly. "I didn't." "No," he interrupted gently. "But they came from your device, from your IP, and one of them was confirmed with a biometric unlock from your face." Her face went pale. Then came the USB. He plugged it into a small tablet he'd brought, turned it toward her, and hit play. The timestamp, 11:42 p.m., dated 3 weeks earlier. Grainy black and white footage, her sister, hoodie up, sunglasses on, at a pawn counter, the brooch, the earrings, her voice unmistakable, even muffled through poor audio. "Family stuff," she said to liquidate it. Another clip, a second location, a different heirloom, same routine. She swallowed hard. "I didn't know," she began, her voice cracking. "She did," he replied simply. And then, as if summoned by some cursed alignment of timing, her sister walked through the front door. Pause, freeze, she saw him, saw the folder, the screen. "Seriously?" her sister scoffed, mask slipping instantly. "This is a whole performance now?" He didn't look up. Instead, he pulled the last item from the folder, a printed police report, dated 2 days ago, filed under his name. Charges: fraud, identity theft, theft over $5,000, and unlawful access of private financial accounts. Filed, submitted, already reviewed. They've scheduled the interview. I suggest you don't lie. They have footage now. Her sister's face morphed. Anger, panic, then something worse, realization. "You're doing this to me?" she snapped, turning to her sister. "He lied to you for years, but you're going to sit here and—" He raised a hand. The motion stopped her dead, not aggressive, not loud, just absolute. Quiet. The silence that followed could have shattered glass. He turned to his wife. "Whatever story you believed, whatever you needed to believe to justify what you did, I'm not here to rewrite it. I'm just here to close the book." Then he stood, left the folder on the table, the USB, the report, the footage. The house was quiet when the door shut behind him. Her sister stood frozen, mouth still parted. But she sat down, slowly, staring at the pile of evidence that used to be her life, and realized this wasn't about anger. This was about submission, because now every accusation was a matter of record. 3 days after he walked out for the last time, the silence cracked, not with a bang, but with a ping. Her phone buzzed with a message from Rachel, one of those just checking in types who always pretended to care just enough to be included in gossip, but never enough to actually help. Hey, not sure if you've seen this yet, just a heads up. Attached was a blurry screenshot. It was from a local community forum, the kind where people complain about potholes and lost cats and high school fundraisers. But this post wasn't about cats. It was titled, "Warning, Sibling Theft Ring in Our Neighborhood." Her name wasn't in it, not directly, but the details were unmistakable. The brooch, the pawn shop, the ATM footage, the phrase, "joint account fraud." The post didn't accuse, not outright, but it didn't need to. It was written with surgical implication, vague enough to dodge a lawsuit, specific enough that anyone in their circle knew exactly who it was about. She clicked to the comments. Over 70. Wait, isn't this the woman who kicked her husband out last month? I heard her sister moved in right after. Sketchy. I saw one of them at the consignment store with, like, a bag of stuff. Wonder if that's connected. They gave off weird energy at my kid's school fundraiser. Not surprised, TBH. Panic settled into her bloodstream like acid. She called Rachel. No answer. Called again. Voicemail. Tried texting 3 other friends. Nothing. By that afternoon, the second blow landed. Her sister's job called. She heard the muffled conversation from the hallway. Her sister tried to keep her voice down but failed miserably. No, it's a misunderstanding. Of course I didn't. Look, this is personal, okay? You're letting rumors dictate 8 decisions? Click. Then came the shouting. They're suspending me because of that damn forum. Do you have any idea what this does to my license? She didn't answer, because 2 hours earlier, her boss had forwarded the same post to her with a note. We need to talk about optics. Might be best to lay low for a while. She hadn't replied. What could she say? Then the third blow. A knock at the door. Not the confident kind her husband had delivered. This one was rushed, erratic. She opened it to find her sister's landlord standing there, grim-faced, lease folder in hand. I need to verify where she's staying, he said bluntly. We've had calls about activity tied to her name. I'll be reviewing the unit this weekend. She tried to argue, deflect, but it was no use. The man was polite, firm, and entirely disinterested in her explanations. Her sister collapsed into the couch as soon as he left. You let him do this to us. The words hit like a slap. No, she said, her voice hoarse. You did this. I just watched it happen. Her sister scoffed. Don't play innocent now. You rode the high horse while I did your dirty work. What dirty work? She snapped. Stealing heirlooms, forging withdrawals, lying about what he said. You wanted him gone, her sister hissed. I gave you that, and now you're pretending like you didn't know the cost? The worst part? For a moment she almost said yes, but she didn't, because she didn't know the cost. Not fully, not until now, when the invitation stopped coming, when the text went unanswered, when she caught her reflection in the window and saw someone else looking back. By the end of the week, her sister's email had been suspended, her lease flagged, and she'd received 3 passive-aggressive texts from extended family about hoping everything's okay and how sad things have gotten. Even her hairdresser canceled her next appointment. The ripple effect was surgical, controlled, measured, the exact kind of slow burn he would orchestrate. No shouting, no scandal, just removal. Social, professional, reputational. Her sister began staying in her room, barely emerging. The fridge emptied, the house felt colder. They were still technically free, but freedom means nothing when everyone closes the door in your face. And by now, almost every door had. It finally boiled over on a Wednesday night. A storm had rolled in, thunder echoing through the windows like distant artillery. She'd been staring at the ceiling for hours, listening to her sister pace the living room in a rage spiral, cursing the internet, the toxic gossip, the idiot friends who'd turned cold. But when the knock came, 2 sharp raps, flashlight beams through the curtain, everything fell into slow motion. 2 plainclothes officers, calm voices, a warrant, not for arrest, for seizure. Her sister's phone was handed over. So was the tablet, the pawn ticket folder, anything that could confirm digital access, financial trails, GPS pings. They were polite, methodical, efficient, and gone in under 15 minutes. Her sister stood frozen in the middle of the kitchen after they left, mascara already streaking. "You let them take my phone? Are you kidding me? You just stood there." She said nothing. Her sister stepped closer, breath shaking with fury. "They said he filed a formal affidavit, that he submitted a drive with password logs. How the hell did he even get those?" Still, she didn't respond. "You know what this is, right?" the sister shouted. "It's a setup. He planted this whole damn thing to destroy both of us, but mostly me. You think this is justice? You think he's the hero now?" Finally, she spoke. "I think you underestimated the man you painted as a villain." Her sister stared at her, eyes wild, bloodshot, unblinking. Then the meltdown began. "You should have protected me," she screamed. "After everything I've done for you. I was there when he emotionally abandoned you. I moved in so you wouldn't spiral. I defended you to everyone who said you were selfish. I cleaned this house, cooked your meals, rebuilt your life. And the second things get hard, you side with him?" She didn't yell back. She didn't have to. She just reached into the drawer, pulled out the blue Post-it note he'd left, and handed it to her sister. 7 weeks. You never once asked if it was true. That broke something. Her sister tore the note in half, then again and again, fists shaking as the pieces fell to the floor like ashes. She sobbed, not soft tears, full collapse, the kind of sobbing that sounds like an animal caught in a trap. But sympathy didn't come, only clarity. Because no amount of noise could outshout the truth now. The receipts had receipts. The timeline had timestamps. Her sister's fingerprints were everywhere. In the transaction logs, in the camera footage, in the exact shade of lipstick worn in the pawn shop clip from security cam footage dated 5 weeks back. The house, once a fortress of co-conspirators, now felt like a courtroom. Each room a chamber where evidence waited in silence. And she was no longer on the defense. "I should have protected us," she said quietly, locking eyes with her sister. "From you." Those 5 words landed harder than any slap. Her sister backed away like she'd been hit, shook her head slowly. "You're not better than me." "No," she said, "but I'm done pretending you ever were my savior." The next morning the summons arrived. Official letterhead. Her sister was required to appear for questioning regarding financial misconduct pending investigation. There was no confrontation after that. No more rants. Her sister stayed locked in the guest room, blinds drawn, bags slowly disappearing from the hallway. But the silence wasn't peace. It was retreat, not out of guilt, but out of fear, because the net was no longer theoretical. And she finally understood. Sisterhood didn't collapse because of betrayal. It collapsed because lies make terrible foundations. And now her sister's defense was gone, just like her mask. It was nearly 4 weeks before she heard from him again. Or rather, tried to. The house had become unbearable. The sister was gone, moved out quietly one morning with 2 suitcases and a duffel bag. No goodbye, just a hollow closet and a faint citrus smell that lingered longer than the damage she left behind. Her court date was set. Her name was blacklisted from 3 community committees. Even the neighborhood kids avoided the sidewalk near the mailbox, like drama might be contagious. But worse than the collapse was the silence. He didn't reach out. Didn't gloat, didn't ask for anything. He simply vanished, completely, and that more than anything tore at her. She thought about calling a dozen times, even had a speech rehearsed, something sincere, something measured, not to win him back, but just to explain, to apologize. But every time she opened her phone, she froze, because what could she say that would sound like anything but revision? In the end, she settled for a single text, short, careful. "Did we really need to end it like this?" She sent it just before midnight, lying awake in a bed that felt twice as wide and half as warm. No RID receipt, no reply. The next morning she found a delivery slip in her mailbox. Certified mail. Signature required. She signed for it without thinking, not even registering the return address. It wasn't handwritten. It was printed, formal. She carried the envelope into the kitchen, sat at the same table where he'd laid out the folder weeks ago. The chair across from her still had the faintest dent in the cushion, like the memory of his presence refused to vanish completely. Inside the envelope was a single item, a photo, their wedding day. She knew the image instantly, taken just before the ceremony, the two of them laughing beside a willow tree. She was mid-laugh. He was looking at her, not the camera. The photo was torn cleanly in half, right down the middle, not ripped in rage, not crumpled, just surgically severed, and beneath it, printed on crisp white paper in the center of the page, just one line: "You kicked me out before you asked me anything. That was your story's start. This is its end." She stared at it for a long time, long enough for the sunlight to shift, for the coffee to go cold, for the weight of 7 weeks, and the lies and the pride and the silence to sink like a stone in her chest. She wanted to scream, to cry, to explain that she hadn't known, hadn't meant for it to go that far, hadn't thought he'd actually walk away. But she knew the truth. He hadn't walked away. He'd been pushed out of his home, out of his marriage, out of the narrative she and her sister wrote like co-authors of a novel they never expected to be reviewed. And now it was finished. No dramatic send-off, no final argument, no second chance, just silence delivered by post. His silence hadn't been weakness, it had been strategy. And with that single torn photograph, he gave her what she never gave him: closure and consequences.